Welcome to everyone to the normal Monday edition of Fair Territory. We are back home, as you can see here. No more housekeepers barging into the room. No more telephones ringing off the hook. And no, I couldn't get up in the middle of the show to get the phone off the hook, okay? I saw all the comments. I see everything, folks. We're going to do a World Series recap. We're going to talk about my favorite World Series of all time. I might not be in my best voice coming off a month on the road and cross country stuff, but hey, we're going to do it. We're going to recap the World Series, not necessarily in a traditional way where you go game by game, but kind of talking about each team. And that's what I want to do to start with the lead today. Talk about each team, where they are, what they accomplished, and where they go from here. And I'm going to start with the Blue Jays. And obviously, if you're a fan of the game, even if you're a fan of the Dodgers, you could feel for the Blue Jays. And you can understand the heartbreak that they experienced after what was coming to be, or what was looking to be, their first World Series title since 1993. They had a 3-0 lead in the third inning on the Bichette home run in Game 7. They had a lead with 2 outs to go in the ninth, a 1-run lead, and yet they did not win. They lose Game 7 in 11 innings. Of course, we all know how it turned out. And you saw perhaps afterward the reports from the Blue Jays clubhouse, how the players were crushed. Ernie Clement talking about how he had cried for an hour. Max Scherzer saying that he's 41 and he never thought he could love baseball this much. That, as you could see, even from watching the games, was an unusually close team. A team that came together in a way that previous Blue Jays teams had not. A team that achieved things that previous Blue Jays teams had not. And a team that, yes, was so close. In fact, I got a text from a friend of mine who works for the Blue Jays after Game 7, shortly after, and he said, hey, no team has ever come this close to winning a World Series. I'm shattered. And you can understand that. And you can certainly understand the sentiments of everyone involved. I even saw a post on X, a collection of tweets from some of the wives and girlfriends of the Blue Jays, saying how special this whole experience had been, how close everyone had gotten. It was and will remain in the memory of those who root for that team, a special team. Didn't end up winning the championship, but still special. Now, the Blue Jays were gallant in this series. Nothing short of that. They were inspiring with the way they played. And you can make the case that they were the better team. Now, Caleb Joseph, the former catcher who now works for Rogers Sportsnet, had that comment that got some blowback, but I understood where he was coming from. He said, it's going to sound like sour grapes, but I think the better team did not win this series. Now, yes, people are going to jump on that, and Kike Hernandez had a cute response to that, but the bottom line is this. While the Dodgers won the series, they were outscored 34-26. The Blue Jays outhit them 269-203. They outplayed them in most of the games. They didn't win. That's baseball. That's what happens sometimes. And of course, Yoshinobu Yamamoto was the great equalizer. Wins in 3 of the games, Game 2, Game 6, and then, of course, the incredible performance in Game 7 on 0 days rest. He was on hours rest, not days rest. So an impressive performance by the Blue Jays. And I say this all the time. And I say it especially to Yankee fans who complain about no titles since 2009 as if a World Series title is their birthright. It is so hard to win. It is so hard to win a World Series. It's so hard to win a baseball game, period, a major league game. Managers will say that all the time. It's hard to win a major league game. Only one of the 30 clubs ends up as a champion. We know that. And in this particular case, the Blue Jays were up against the team that was really good, and a team I'll get to in a second. And yes, for Blue Jays fans, for people who wanted to see the Dodgers lose, it's easy to bemoan the missed opportunities. Jeff Hoffman giving up the home run to Rojas. IKF not getting a big enough lead off third base. We can debate whether he should have had a bigger lead. I'll trust Whit Merrifield, who tweeted basically that he did the right thing. You don't want to get doubled off there or backpicked there. Whatever. We can debate all this. But no game is ever decided by one thing, by one umpire's call, by one play, by one anything. The Blue Jays in the last 2 games went 4 for 26 with runners in scoring position. A hit any in those situations, and maybe this is a whole different story. So for the Blue Jays, obviously you understand why the players are upset and why they feel the way they do. And, also, when you're a team in Major League Baseball, the roster in one year is not going to look the same as the next year. The 2026 Blue Jays will not look the same as the 2025 Blue Jays. We know this. Bo Bichette is a free agent. Possible they could re-sign him at second base? I guess possible if he wants to do that. I'm not sure he does. Max Scherzer, free agent. Chris Bassett, free agent. One of the beautiful things about this team was the mixture of veterans like Scherzer and Bassett and youngsters like Trey Savage and everything in between. Some guys like Ernie Clement, who had been released by other teams, Nathan Lucas, a guy who also had gone through a lot, 10 years in the minor leagues, thought about retiring, all these great stories, and they all came together from different parts of the baseball universe and formed this extremely appealing and competitive team. It will not be easy for them next year. We know that they play in perhaps the game's most competitive division, the AL East. And again, it will be a different look for their roster. But the Blue Jays, in my mind, should be nothing but proud. All right, now on to the World Series champions, the Dodgers. I was critical of them in The Athletic after Game 5. When they went down 3-2, I wrote about their deficiencies, offensive deficiencies, defensive deficiencies, bullpen. They did not look good. And really, in many instances this season, they did not look good. They had stretches where they did not hit, including in the World Series, actually, including the final 3 rounds of the playoffs. They had stretches where, of course, they had players out with injuries, more injured days list, or more days on the injured list than any team this year. They had kind of a struggle for a team that was expected or thought perhaps to win 110, 120 games. They won 93, didn't have home field advantage for this series because the Jays won 94. So the Dodgers were obviously a team that we all expected to be good, but they do have at this point a position player group that is aging. And when you watch this series, a reasonable person could have concluded that the Jays were the better team. Now, it didn't end up that way. They didn't win the series, and that's because the Dodgers showed something, particularly in Game 7, but also in Game 6, in coming back the way they did in those 2 games, that championship teams show. And they are the back-to-back World Series champions, first time since the 98 to 2000 Yankees, for a reason. What they did in winning the final 2 games on the road was pretty rare in World Series history. It's happened 32 times now, where a team was down 3-2 going on the road in a best-of-7 World Series. Only 9 times, 9 out of 32, have those teams won, and the Dodgers became the 9th with what they did in Game 7. And Game 7, let's face it, was their tour de force. And Yamamoto played a huge role, of course, in all this. They don't win the World Series without him. Okay, but Game 7 featured so much to really recommend the Dodgers, I guess, be kind of a bad phrase, but you know what I'm saying. So much that showed you who they were. Home runs in the 8th, the 9th, and the 11th inning. 4 starting pitchers contributing, all of them on short rest to some degree or no rest in Yamamoto's case. Guys like Miguel Rojas stepping up, Justin Robleski and Emmett Sheehan, 2 younger pitchers stepping up. They got contributions in the World Series from all over the place. So for all the money they spent, you see the bullpen and what they did in the final game. Actually, I shouldn't call it the bullpen. It was kind of like the starters turned relievers, including Sheehan for that matter, and what they accomplished in this game. Yamamoto, my gosh, 2 2/3 scoreless innings. It was just brilliant. It was a tour de force, honestly, a classic example of if you're going to knock off the champ, you better knock them out. And the Blue Jays didn't. They didn't knock them out. The Dodgers obviously prevailed. Now, as we've discussed on this show many times, lots of people complain about the Dodgers. Lots of people say, well, when you spend nearly $400 million, you should win. And I understand the argument. We've talked about that. And we've talked about how the disparity between the big money teams and the lesser revenue teams in baseball is an enduring problem for the sport. We may disagree about how to solve it. I don't know that anyone can say it's something that should not be addressed. It should be addressed in a better way or more meaningful way than it is now. This has been an issue for a long time. It goes back to the Yankees in the 50s, for heaven's sake. And we'll see in the next labor negotiations how this all plays out. But for all of that, and this is what I wrote after Game 7, you have to admire what the Dodgers accomplished. The sacrifices their players made, particularly in Game 7, the guys pitching on short rest, Rojas, who had been benched for the first 5 games, coming out in Game 6 and then 7 doing what he did. You have to admire what they did as a team and the commitment to winning that the players showed, and for that matter, the commitment to winning that their front office and ownership showed as well. The manager, Dave Roberts, remember early in his postseason career, frequently came under scrutiny. This was perhaps his finest hour. Going to Rojas in Game 6, dropping Mookie Betts to the number 4 spot, moving Will Smith up to the number 2 spot. All of these things seemed to work out. His pitching decisions seemed to work out as well. Yes, he had expensive starting pitchers in his arsenal for Game 7, but those guys got the job done. And again, you have to admire what they are accomplishing, what they have accomplished, and just kind of what they've built there. I know they spend all the money. They do. So do the Mets. So do the Yankees. So do the Phillies. Blue Jays were 5th in payroll. Lots of teams spend money. The Dodgers not only spend money, they have maybe the best farm system, or one of them. They do well internationally. They figure things out as far as just beyond even spending money on big-time players. Will Klein, that's a guy they picked up. They have these guys that they kind of figure into the mix, and then they get the most out of them. This is why they win championships. And I dare to say, even if we were in a salary cap era, they'd still be winning championships because they are arguably, and other teams will tell you this, the team that runs the best, the team that is run the best. They run most efficiently, most intelligently. They just do things correctly. All right, that's the World Series. We're going to have more. I'm going to tell you where I rank this World Series among my personal top 5, but I also want to get into the remaining managerial openings. We've got the Padres still open. Remember, that has not been filled yet. Albert Pujols and Ruben Niebla, reportedly the finalists there. Pujols, of course, the great Hall of Famer. Ruben Niebla, pitching coach with the Padres and a guy who is well respected. That would be an interesting choice, right? Pujols is here, Niebla is here, 2 different kinds of guys. Then you have the Braves. And the rumor with the Braves, not rumor, but it's been reported that they've been waiting on Danny Lehman, the Dodgers bench coach. And we'll see if that happens. Alex Anthopoulos, when things are written with him as president of baseball operations, rarely do they come true. Usually he's got something else cooking. But we'll see if they hire Danny Lehman. We've seen some unorthodox hires here. Tony Vitello in San Francisco, Blake Butera in Washington. Lehman would be an unorthodox hire too. He's coached, but would he be able to command that room in Atlanta? I'm not sure. Didn't play in the majors, anything like that. So I'll have more to say after this hiring process is over about just what I think of what's gone on. I kind of said it the other day. The fact that Brandon Hyde and David Ross are not even getting sniffs here, that bothers me. I don't think that's right. So we have those 2 jobs open in San Diego and Atlanta. We have another job open as well in Colorado. We're still waiting for the Rockies to name their president of baseball operations. And guys, it's November 3rd. You might want to get going on this. The GM meetings are next week. You kind of need to have a clue here. Put someone in place. All right, we'll talk more about that as well. But coming up in the Inside Dish, my top 5 World Series.
FT fam, if you want more information about Superpower, I have real-life customer Eric Kratz with us right now to explain how you're basically getting the pro experience available for everyone.
$199 is the price, and that's a discount from Superpower. That's a discount from everywhere. You get so much information from your lab test results. Christmas is coming up here soon. You can give this gift to somebody else. Health is the gift that keeps on giving.
Your blueprint activated with Superpower. Not only did Superpower reduce that price to what Kratz is talking about, just $199, but for a limited time, FT fam gets an additional $20 off with code TAKE20. Head to superpower.com and use code TAKE20 at checkout for $20 off your membership. After you sign up, they're going to ask you how you heard about them, and make sure you mention FT to support the show. Stop only reacting to health problems and start proactively improving your health based on real personalized data with Superpower.
Something I've written, a trend in the game, something else entirely. And today, I want to talk about my top 5 World Series since I became a baseball writer. I became a baseball writer in 1987. So this is a long time, obviously, not as long as some of the younger writers on The Athletic would say when they joke that I've covered the World Series in 1903. And I'm like, no, none of that. But I have covered a lot of World Series, and I do have a top 5. And I want to get into where 2025 ranks in that top 5. It certainly is in there. Is it the top? Well, we're all guilty of recency bias, right? So I want to try to be as fair as possible here in ranking my top 5. So, number 5, I will start with 2011, the Cardinals defeating the Rangers. Now, this was a memorable World Series in large part because Game 6 was one of the great games of all time, ending on the David Freese walk-off. The Texas Rangers were in much the same position the Blue Jays were the other night, and they didn't get it done. And there were 2 one-run games in this series. That's not that many. Some of the games weren't very close, but Game 6 was an all-time classic. So that's why I've got 2011 as my number 5. 7-game series. All the series that I'm going to mention here went 7 games. So 2011, that ranks as number 5. As we go up the list, what's next? Oh, some people might say 2016 is only number 4. Well, I'll tell you why, and you'll see why as I go forward in this list. Now, this obviously, from a standpoint of historical impact, 2016 was certainly higher than number 4 in my career. The Cubs won the World Series for the first time since 1908. The Indians at the time, called the Indians, were trying to win one for the first time since 1948. The Cubs went back to Cleveland, down 3-2, just as the Dodgers did against the Blue Jays here. And I'll never forget interviewing Jason Kipnis of the Indians that time on the field after Game 5. Remember, the Indians were up 3-2. And I said, hey, man, you're close. Actually, they were up 3-1 at this point, I believe. Cubs won the final 3 games. And I said to Kipnis, you need one more win to win the World Series. And he kind of teared up standing on the field in Wrigley. And it didn't happen. The Cubs won the final 3 games. And obviously, Game 7 was an all-timer. And we had the rain delay and all the different things that happened in that game. There were 3 one-run games in that series, including Game 7. You remember the Rajai Davis game-tying 2-run homer of Aroldis Chapman in the 8th inning. You remember it going to extra innings, the rain delay, the Jason Hayward speech, all of it. It was amazing. And it's still only number 4 for me. Number 3 on my all-time top 5 list, all times dating back to 1987. Yep, Dodgers over Blue Jays this World Series. And this World Series obviously was really good. Now, there were only 2 one-run games. Both of the extra inning games were run. The others, not all of them were that competitive, though most were competitive into the later innings. What made this series so memorable for me, and maybe why it should even rank higher, are the memorable performances, the historic performances we saw. And I'm talking about what? Ohtani on base 9 times in Game 3. I'm talking about your Savages, 12 strikeouts in Game 5, a record for a rookie in the World Series. Vladimir Guerrero, unbelievable postseason in general, 397 batting average in the postseason, an OPS of nearly 1,300, brilliant defense, great base running. He became a different level of star in this World Series and in this postseason. Ernie Clement finishing the postseason with 30 hits was brilliant right through the World Series. Bo Bichette playing through the discomfort that he did with his knee. George Springer playing after seemingly being out for this series. All of these different things that happened. The Rojas homer. And of course, Yamamoto. So that to me is what made this series so memorable. The games were good, don't get me wrong. Really good. And Game 7 was ridiculously good. But the performances, the individual performances, elevated it for me even to a higher level. So why isn't it number 2 or number 1? I'm going to tell you why. Number 2, what do we got? 2001, Diamondbacks over the Yankees. Now, I know some of you might not have been around back then, but let me refresh you, young ones. That World Series was played coming off 9/11. So there was an extra emotional element to it. The country was still grieving and healing coming off 9/11. It was only a month or so later when the Yankees hosted the World Series. And for the first time, actually, people outside of New York might have been rooting for the Yankees because they empathized with what was going on in New York, trying to rebuild and all of that. This World Series, though, also was one of the most competitive and compelling ever. Now, the Yankees went down 2-0 in Arizona. They were trailing this World Series 2-0. They go back to New York. They win 3 straight one-run games, 2 in extra innings. This was the time when Jeter hit the home run in Game 4 to become Mr. November. Young Kim for the Arizona Diamondbacks struggled. We all remember him struggling. And then it went back to Arizona with the Yankees up 3-2, and the Diamondbacks needing to win both games at home to do it. They win Game 6. That was a rout. But Game 7 was an all-timer, of course. Luis Gonzalez, the hit off Mariano Rivera, the end of the Yankee dynasty. They had won 3 straight World Series, and this World Series, because of all those things I mentioned, just was elevated to a higher level. It was really cool, and it was really emotional. And Randy Johnson, of course, did what Yamamoto did. Game 6, starter. Game 7, in relief. All these things came into play, and it was great. So why isn't that number one? It's not number one because I've got another one. And the other one is, 1991. Twins defeat the Braves 4-3. People don't even remember this one because a lot of them weren't born. I get it. In this particular World Series, there were 5 one-run games out of 7. 5 one-run games, including Game 7. 1-0, Smoltz versus Morris. Smoltz went 7 1/3 scoreless. Morris went 10 scoreless. It was decided on a Gene Larkin single. If you don't believe me on how great a World Series this was, go look it up. Look up the recaps. I could not wait to get to the ballpark every day to cover that World Series. The games were that fascinating, that compelling. So there are my top 5. I've got 2025 at number 3. You might disagree. I understand that, but that's how I saw it.
BetMGM account holders, today, how about an any sport parlay boost token? You can score a bigger payout if your wager with that token hits. Tokens can be used on parlays and on same game parlays. Gambling problem or concern? There's help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, time now for Grilling Ken, the part of the show where I take your questions. I've been long-winded, so we don't have that much time, but let's go. First question. It comes from Michael Pickering, 1643, who asks, Cody Bellinger back to the Dodgers. Interesting question. There's been a lot of talk already of the Dodgers signing Kyle Tucker. Well, Cody Bellinger is a really good player, a left-handed hitter like Tucker. He's going to cost a lot less. So why not Cody Bellinger back to the Dodgers? That's a good one. I don't know. I haven't thought much about it. They're going to do something. They're going to sign another bat, and it's going to be a younger player. And Bellinger and Kyle Tucker both qualify in terms of free agents as younger players. They're both around 29, if I'm not mistaken. So that's an interesting one. Something to watch for sure. I don't know how it ended there with Bellinger. I don't know what they think of him. Maybe they think differently of him now. Maybe he thinks differently of them. And who knows? But that's an interesting question. All right, let's go to the next one. Martha Brennan asks, Father Time is undefeated. So what do you expect the market for Pete Alonso to be? Martha, that's a good one too. Now, Father Time is undefeated, and that's the reason the Mets are going to be reluctant to extend or to sign Alonso into his mid and late 30s. This was the problem last offseason as well. But Alonso is an extremely productive player coming off a great year, and I expect he's going to do better than he did last year with no qualifying offer. Will it be the Mets? I'm not sure it will be the Mets. I have never gotten the impression that President of Baseball Operations, David Stearns, wants Alonso long term. But we'll see how free agency goes. It seems to me teams like Boston and others will be more interested in Alonso this time around, teams that need power badly. All right, let's go. I think we have one more question. Should Kyle Tucker's health history be a factor in free agency? That comes from Henry Thuss. This is something I've thought about, Henry. The last 2 years, Tucker has been injured and missed some time, struggled because he was having physical difficulties. I don't know that these injuries are necessarily chronic. One was, I believe, a heel. They're kind of fluky things. So I don't really expect him to be looked at as an injury-prone player. He's a guy who was kind of durable before all this, but certainly this could come into play. I would think that some teams are going to maybe have a little bit of a pause because of the last 2 years. I'm just not sure they should. All right, one more question before we go. Let's see. We've got what you all think the Yankees might do as far as Kyle Tucker, Skubal in the shortstop position. Robin Soto, they're not going to get all of them. Maybe they'll bid for Tucker, although I don't really see that necessarily happening. Will they trade for Skubal? I don't know that they'll give the Tigers what they want. And shortstop, That's going to be interesting. They've got Caballero. They can use him until Volpe comes off the surgery. But at the same time, Volpe long-term is a question. All right, before we go, I want to say one more thing. You might have noticed this on our broadcast. We thanked our longtime producer of 22 years at Fox Sports, Pete Macheska, for his service. He is now going to do just football, not baseball. It's his choice. He's going out on top. This guy was the man who was the producer when I first came aboard in 2006. He's been incredibly good to me. He's been incredible as a producer, as a leader for our team. So I thank Pete, and we'll be back Thursday, our normal show, and we'll be live. We'll be live at 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific, and perhaps I'll have my voice back at full strength. Have a great week, everyone.